guys, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. If you have been following along with the Draw With Me series, then you have reached this point in drawing Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy. By the way, I do not own the rights to that. We are simply using it for educational purposes. So you have reached the point where you are ready to start shading the hair and I don't know if you call it a uniform, just some sort of outfit here she's wearing, that's what we'll call it. So you are to that point, and if you haven't started with this, if you're just finding this video, take a look in the description below, and I will have linked the series where you can see all of the videos that precede this one. So in this video, we're going to take a look at two different techniques that you can use. Whether you are a traditional artist or a digital artist, you will have a technique that applies to you. Now, for our digital artist, you may use either technique. For our traditional artist, only one technique is really gonna work for you. So in the video that follows this, you will see both techniques, and I will let you know which one I'm doing in the video. If you're following along this part, you will know which one is for you and which one's not for you. But I will have them labeled so you will know what's coming up to the video in the video, and you can fast forward to the part that you want, or you can just keep replaying the part that applies to you. So basically, I'm going to be coloring all of this twice. So I'm hoping to get that done in a week. We'll see how that goes. I have a lot of appointments coming up, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It may be a week and a half. If you're following along when this series has started, it may be a week and a half before you see the next video. We'll see how it goes. But first, let's talk about our layers. Now, we have the grid layer, which I have turned off. I have a drawing layer. I have the layer that's for the face and the skin. And then we are going to come and start doing a layer for the hair and the clothes. This one says traditional. I did that so I would know which one is which. The one that says hair and clothes, that's going to be for my digital artist. The one that says traditional, that is for the traditional artist, but digital artists may use either one. I have a layer called correction, and I'm going to share that with you in just a few minutes when we talk about the digital art. And then I have another layer that says drawing, and that is a white layer. I don't know if you can tell, but the drawing on that is white, and the drawing down here on this one is the black. So we'll talk about those. This applies only to the digital art students. If you're traditional art, you can take a breather on that one, that you're not going to have to come up with white lines. So let's get started first of all, and let's talk about traditional art. So for traditional art, we are going to use the same method that we used for shading her face. And normally what I like to do when I'm working on hair is I like to work with all of the darker, and I'll come over here. I always forget I have turned that off. I always like to look for the darkest areas in the hair and shade those first, and then do the medium, and then go to the light, and then come back and add detail. We're going to do it a little bit differently for this video, simply because I want to make it easy for you to see things. So I like to be able to zoom in on the video in that area so you can see what's going on. If I keep the whole video like this, it's going to be hard for you to see detail. So I'm going to be working one area at a time, but keep in mind that what I'm doing in that one area, I'll be starting with kind of a medium over the area, a medium shading, and then I'm going to add the dark. And then in some areas, I'm actually going to be, if I haven't avoided the area for the light, for the highlights, then I'll probably come back and erase it. So you'll see that in the video. You'll see color coming off. So when you're doing my videos, it's a good idea. Remember, I'm human. I'm making mistakes while I'm doing this. You're simply seeing the time lapse, but if you were watching me in real time, you would see me draw and erase and draw and erase. That's just how it is. So when I do a section, wait, and then let me finish that section, because I may put some color in and take it up. So you'll see me do that in this particular one, because I go back and forth. For me, hair is the hardest thing as far as getting the shading just right, because I like to shade and erase, shade and erase. I do that on paper. I do that on digital. So there you go. If I'm doing it in paint, then I'm painting and repainting. So that's what you're going to see on here. So let's start with traditional art. Now, digital art students, if you want to do it like traditional artists, what you're going to do is you're going to, above your face and skin layer, you're going to add a layer for your hair and your clothes. Again, this says traditional just so I can keep a record of what I'm doing here. But I'm going to turn this layer on, and you'll see that I've started on the hair. Now I have light areas, I have medium areas, and I have dark areas. And I'm going to show you an area. I'm going to start right over here. You can see I have medium shading coming down. And again, you want to keep, you want to keep it, make sure I'm on the right layer, yes. You want to keep it kind of light. You can always come back and add to it, but you will find that if you are, sorry guys, my daughter loves houseplants, and we have had these little gnats that have kind of sprung up out of the soil. You're going to see it. It's just attracted to my light in here. It's driving me insane. We are doing some different techniques to try to get rid of it. Vinegar and water and hydrogen peroxide and water. And there's dish soap in there somewhere too. If you have a good method for getting rid of gnats and houseplants, put that down below. But anyway, I am coloring. I apologize for the gnat. I am coloring just kind of medium in these areas. And again, if you're a digital artist, this is what you would do as well. I'm keeping my opacity. If you're digital art, I'm keeping the opacity all the way up. And I'm just kind of in the middle on the size of the brush, because this is hair. We're not doing a huge area here. This is hair. Now I'm taking a look at my reference, and I have kind of a light area coming down. So I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to start adding the darker on top. And again, you're going to do this if you're doing traditional art or digital art. We're making the area a little darker. We just go back and forth until we get it just right. This is all a little bit darker under here. And as you see, I'm doing it section at a time. And I'm going to worry about the light areas last. If I were doing this on paper, I would probably just do all of the dark areas and then come back and get the mediums and come back and get the lights. But when you're working in digital art, you have to do it a little bit differently. So I've got my medium down, and now I'm working out to the lighter areas. So you see, I'm trying to match up the values that I'm seeing over here. Now, if you don't get it perfectly, that's okay. What I tell my students is don't worry about it. You're not going to be sitting there with your reference photo right next to your piece so people can compare. The point is for you to get joy in art and to learn how to shade and to learn how to make a piece. So don't worry about your reference photo being there. People are not going to have that reference photo side by side saying, oh, look, they missed drawing a hair. So don't worry about that. You can change it up a little bit. I've actually changed on part of her hair. I've changed the way it flows just a little bit. You might notice that in the video, or you might not. All right. So now I'm going to come back and add a little bit more. Again, remember in the last video when I talked about moving and circular motions? That's what I'm doing, circular motion. You need to do that whether you're doing digital art or traditional art. It just keeps things a little smoother. And if you ever get into colored pencil, this technique will help you a great deal keeping it smooth. So, okay. Let's back up just a little bit. I'm going to turn off those drawing lines. So you see we're starting to build up the form. Now, one of the last things that I will do, and I'm going to add a layer above. I always like to do my fine lines, which you can see some of my fine lines in here. I always like to do those detail pieces last. So I'm going to pretend like I've gotten all of this shaded just the way I want it, and I'm going to do those detail pieces. So I come in with the detail pieces with a little more pressure. And this is where we're not going to be doing the circular motion and kind of keeping our pencil a little bit at an angle. We're actually going to come in and do strokes like this into her hair. And this is going to give us that texture that we need. Now, some areas she has, I don't know how well it'll show up for you guys. Right in here, you can see some lighter hairs. And I'm gonna turn off my lines so that I do this when I'm doing traditional art. And again, if you're doing traditional art, or I'm sorry, I do this when I'm doing digital art. If you're doing digital art, keep your eraser to whatever brush you're using for your shading. And for me, for Procreate, I'm using the peppermint. Remember, we said you can do whatever you want. If you want to keep it like mine, though, that's what I'm using. So I have my eraser turned about halfway on opacity and down a little bit lower on size. And then that way I can come in. Whoops, I'm going to have to go down here on the actual. I do that. I skip back and forth and forget to change layers. But if you were doing an eraser, you would just run your eraser over the area and you can actually pick up hairs like that. I call it picking up hairs. There we go. I'm picking up those hairs right on the piece. And that, when you do those long strokes, you can see that gives you more of a realistic feel for the piece. All right, traditional artist, you have your assignment. That's what you're gonna be doing, and yours is gonna show up just like the digital art right after I've finished talking to the digital art students. You can fast forward if you like, or you can watch what they're gonna do. So for digital artists, here's the way I like to do this for my digital art. I like to do whatever takes the least amount of time. So for me, lifting is the easiest way when you're dealing with dark hair or a dark costume like what she has on here. The easiest thing for me is to lay down all the color and then lift out the highlights. So what I have done, and you can use any brush you like, I have added a layer that says hair clothes. And I have picked up, I like to use watercolor, so I will pick up like a watercolor brush, and I used wet glaze, and I make it large, and I cover the entire area. And I'm going to leave this in so that you can see this in the video where I'm actually erasing. But I will cover the entire area, whoops, sorry about that, the entire area that's going to be dark. I will cover that completely with the black. And then I come back in and I erase out just the parts I'm going to be working with. So I erased out just the hair and just the clothing. So you're going to see that in the next thing. Whoops, sorry about that. Getting a little crazy here. All right, I'm going to lock this on traditional here. So you can see all of that is black. I have been working on it. You can see an outline of her hair and some of these little thingamabobs on her outfit. I don't know what these things are called. All right, so you can see where I have done that. And I am coming back and I'm erasing out or lifting out all of the highlights. And you say, how can you do that? Because you can't see your lines anymore. That's why there's another set of lines up here that are white. What I do is I come to my drawing layer, just let me unlock that, and I am going to duplicate it. So I've duplicated the dark drawing layer, and I'm going to go ahead and lock this and turn it off. And now that I'm in this one, I'm going to come over. You're going to put this above your hair and clothes so that you can see it. I'm going to come to this little magic wand up here, tap on that. I'm going to go to hue, saturation, and brightness. I'm going to take the brightness and slide it all the way over. Now I have lines that I can see and they're on top. So that's what I use as my guide. Now I've already done that. Whoops. Just let me go ahead and delete this one. I've already done that up here. And so that's already been done for us. Now I do have an area called correction. So this is for all of you when you're looking at the video, because you're getting ready to do the clothes, whether you are traditional or you're a digital artist, you're getting ready to do the clothes. If you zoom in here, there are two little areas that I did not color. And I started working on the hair and I thought, I don't know what that is. I looked at the picture and I realized, oh, that is not her skin. I thought that was her skin. And another thing, I've had a really long month, so I could go into great detail. Maybe I will in another video. I don't know, but just trust me, it's been a long month. So I have a correction layer, and I'm going to merge it down here, but I wanted you to see it before I merged it down because it's going to look confusing in the video because, boom, there we go. So I had to fill those in so that you can actually see the hair outline a little bit better now. So I'm just going to unlock that and merge that in. So there we go. Now, what I'm going to do for the hair and clothes, if you're working, I'll turn that layer on, if you're working in digital art and you want to use this technique, to me it's faster. For me, this is the best way. You may prefer to do it the way I just showed traditional art, and that's perfectly fine. But again, we come into our eraser. Let's make sure it's the same as our pencil. The reason for that is when we erase, and I'm just going to come in here and randomly erase, it's going to give us the same texture that we have on her skin, and we want to be consistent. So that's why I say it doesn't matter. You can use airbrush if you want to. Whatever you want to use, just make sure it's solid. Make sure it's solid. And I'm going to turn off that canvas filter so you can see. Sorry about that, guys. There's going to be a little glitch in the film here. I'm not even going to try to splice it together where you can't tell that there was a slight emergency in the next room. But everything's fine now. Everything's good. Dog is better. Okay, so I had turned off the canvas filter so you could see how dark this layer actually is. You can see that I have filled it in completely. And I also see that I have some, and I like to do this at the end when I erase to make certain that I get all of this extra erased off the outside. So I have all of that blocked in dark. Now I'm going to come back, and let me turn that back on. I'm going to come back and I'm going to erase out all of the details. So you can see I have already started, and what I like to do is block in the main highlighted areas. I'm not pulling everything off. I'm only doing, let me turn off the drawing layer. I'm only blocking in, and I'll zoom in so you can see that. Her hair. I wanted to start with the hair so you could see what that looks like. And this is not finished. I simply wanted to block in for this video a good chunk of it so you could see what we're doing. Now I have zeroed in onto, and normally what I would do is finish the hair. I wouldn't start on the outfit, but I wanted you to see this for the video before I go any further. And then we're going to use these little things, and I'll go ahead and finish the clothes and the video that's coming up so you can see how that is finished off, and then we'll go back to the hair. But I think you can see in more detail how this can be used to lift off the light and the medium. And then you have the dark from the outfit. And this works the same way with the hair. So I'm going to turn the drawing layer back on. And I'm going to try not to be distracted. I'm still listening. In the next room, the dog got sick and my daughter was yelling for help. So, you know, it's real life. It's like I was saying, if I were doing this in real life, you would see how many times I erase and redraw things. So, okay, I'm going to do it very lightly. I'm using a light hand. And I'm leaving my opacity the same. It's about in the middle for this eraser. If you do not have pressure sensitivity on whatever device you are using, you may have to keep it on low and then come back and erase more and erase more. I'm going to come back in a little bit more because remember our paper is a bit textured, and so I have to come back in those areas and erase a little bit more where the shadows are, because those shadows show up and they sometimes show up a little too much. We do want that on there. We do want it to have a feel of a canvas, and it still has that feel. You can see in this one is finished, but sometimes it has a little bit too much of that feel. We don't want it to take away from the details that we need on the outfit. So I may erase just a little bit more. All right, I'm taking a look. I have the medium. There's my medium. I want to erase a little bit more for the light. So I'm coming in. This is the one I'm looking at right there. I'm coming in. I'm looking back and forth. And I'm erasing out that shape. And again, remember, if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. No one's going to be holding them up side by side and comparing, unless you want them to. You may be very proud of what you've done, and that's good. And you want to say, hey, look how closely I got this. And then you can set them side by side. All right, so now I have the lighter, and I'm going to go for the super light. Let me go around the outside edge because I can see there's a border going along here. This is why it takes me so long on portraits, because I like to get all of the detail. There we go. Now I'm going to go, I see there are some super light points here, so I'm going to go back in. They're on the corners, so those are catching the light. Go back in on the corner. I probably should do this left-handed, the way the camera's positioned, so you can see it a bit better. But I've already started with right, so we're just going to keep going for right hand. All right. I'm going to do a little bit more right here. Just see a little bit. I want to smooth out. All right, let me back up a bit because I like to back up. And I'm going to turn off the lines. I'm going to take a look so we see we have the basic shape of the piece. And I can see I need to erase just a bit more. I'm going to go back a little bit more. But we can see how those are starting to line up. Need to a little bit more on it because I want to also show you. And so now I'm just going to do an overall erasing because I feel like the whole thing needs to be lighter. And when you're doing that in digital art, if you keep the same pressure and just go over everything once, then you lighten the whole thing. You lift the whole thing. I'm even going to come up to this one before I forget and do a little more erasing right there. That needs to be a bit lighter. All right. When you are using some of these pencils, like the Procreate I'm using for the eraser, it will erase outside of the area. It gives it, you can see there's like a fuzzy going on outside of my line. And I want to straighten that up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to my pencil, make sure it's set for the drawing pencil that we used, and it is. And I'm going to come back in. I'm on black. I'm on the same color. And I'm just going to draw back over those areas. I had to do that up here too. Just color back over it and kind of clean up anything that was on the outside. I'm going to do the drawing again and take a look. And sometimes my drawing does not quite match up. So I want, whoops, sorry about that. I want to come back in and straighten things up a bit. So I'm straightening it up with the eraser. I'm actually going to go outside the line and then come back and use this to straighten things up. Now I have the edge that I'm looking for. And some of these edges we want fuzzy. I'm going to actually lay it on its side to kind of fuzz that out a bit. There we go. It takes practice, and it's a matter of going back and forth to get the right look. And again, we want to lay things down on their side when we're coloring large areas, but there comes a point when we want to bring our pencil up and color with the point so we can get into tiny areas. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to get into these tiny areas. And then I'm coming back with the pencil. If you erase too much, I erased a little much right here. Sometimes these pencils can get away from us. Going back in, and I'm also going to straighten up this edge over here. There's some stuff outside that I don't want. I'm going to come back to the eraser. I'm going to erase it where it is a little, there we go, a little more straight on that edge. Sometimes when I'm drawing, I get in a hurry. My edges are not exactly as straight as I'd like for them to be. I'm going to come back in on my side and get that. If you are working in Procreate, you can tap on your brush depending on how you have it set up. You may see me do this. I can switch back and forth between the pencil and the eraser by double tapping my Apple Pencil and it'll switch back and forth. That's a good thing, except sometimes when I'm moving around, I won't even notice it and my finger will twitch and then I'm using the wrong thing. So you'll see me do that in some of these videos as well. But you're just going to come back and just tweak this as you go. So there you go. All right, there's some road noise. Don't know if you can hear that. It is, when I am filming this, it is actually Memorial Day, and I live in a rural area, so a lot of the kiddos that are not in school are out on their four-wheelers, so you're going to be hearing that in the background. All right, just a part of living in the country. All right, so that, as you can see, we're starting at the lights and the darks, and I'm going to continue on around with that. I'm going to turn the drawing back on. There we go. All right, so I'm going to continue around with that on her outfit. I'm going to do her whole outfit first, and then I'm going to switch back to the hair. Now, if you're doing it traditional, or if you're digital and want to follow the traditional, we're going to do all of the hair first, and then we're going to come back to the outfit. And when I get to the outfit on traditional, you're going to see what I do is I completely block in all of the dark colors. Completely block those in, and then I'll come back and I'll pick up all of the little things on her outfit going around. I don't know what those are. They look metal. I don't know. And the trim. So there you go. If you have any questions, please drop those down below in the comments. And if you like this video, please give it a like. It helps the channel tremendously. If you don't like it, just, you know, get off my channel and maybe don't unlike it. Don't give it a thumbs down. Just, you know, slide on by to something else. You know, I'm not for everyone. Not everyone wants to learn the techniques that I do, but there is something out there for everyone. So if this is not for you, take a look around at YouTube. There are billions of people out there making YouTube videos, and a lot of them are artists. So take a look at what's out there. But I thank you for joining me, and I hope you will continue with this project and follow me for the rest of it. And follow along for others that I have upcoming. I'm going to do some more portraits. I'm also going to do a Paint With Me series that will be strictly for digital artists because it's hard for me to explain how to do painting so to traditional artists when I'm doing it digitally. So follow along, and thanks for watching, guys. you.